Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva joins us for an update on her first couple of weeks in Congress. Also tonight, the impact of tariffs and other trade issues on Arizona farmers. And it's been 5 years since the legalization of adult-use marijuana in Arizona. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Quick check of headlines. The Defense Department today announced that it was investigating Arizona Senator Mark Kelly for, quote, serious allegations of misconduct. This after Kelly and several other lawmakers reminded U.S. military personnel that they don't have to follow unlawful orders. President Trump suggested that such a message was, quote, seditious, and that if found guilty, Kelly and the others could be hanged. Kelly, a retired U.S. Navy captain and astronaut, not amused. In a statement today, Kelly noted his military experience and added in part, quote, if this is meant to intimidate me and other members of Congress from doing our jobs and holding this administration accountable, it won't work. I've given too much to this country to be silenced by bullies who care more about their own power than protecting the Constitution. Over the weekend, Kelly had these thoughts on his message to the military and the president's response.
We have a president that doesn't understand the law. He doesn't understand the Constitution. He's the commander-in-chief. He should understand something about the Uniform Code of Military Justice. He's the highest member of the military in our country. He should understand a little bit about this. He clearly does not. I mean, it's very clear in the UCMJ that members of the military have to follow orders. They are also required not to follow illegal or unlawful orders. It's very clear. Here's the thing. He has talked about sending troops into more U.S. cities. He's talked about invoking the Insurrection Act. You don't have to go too far back to his first administration, where in 2020, he went to his Secretary of Defense and he asked the question, he said, can't we just shoot these protesters in the legs? That is an example of an illegal order, if it was given. He didn't give the order, but it's obviously rattling around in his head. He's got these ideas, and these are dangerous ideas.
In announcing the investigation today, the Defense Department stated that military retirees are prohibited from, quote, interfering with the loyalty, morale, or good order and discipline of the armed forces. It's been almost a couple of weeks now since Arizona Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva was sworn into office after a 7-week delay due to House Speaker Mike Johnson refusing to administer the oath during a government shutdown. It was the longest such delay in modern history for an incoming member of the House to be sworn in after winning a special election. We welcome Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva to Arizona Horizon. It's good to see you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I want to there's so many things I want to talk to you about. But first of all, how are you adapting now to your first couple of weeks in Congress?
Well, literally, yes, last week was my first full week, and I was assigned committees, which was great. Both of those committees met at the same time in 2 different buildings on 2 different floors. So welcome to Congress.
Yeah, I was going to say, your father's experience, though, has to help you a little bit, doesn't it?
That's his experience. And so it's kind of like if my dad were a pilot. I don't just sit in a cockpit and can fly away. Like, I've never worked on the Hill. I never was an intern or a fellow in DC. And so it's really been a huge learning curve for me. I'm excited about it. But I think a lot of people assume because my dad was in Congress that I just know Congress. And it is a brand new experience for me. I'm a very freshman.
Okay, as a freshman, what's the mood like? I mean, we keep thinking and we keep hearing that there's a severe divide back there. Are you sensing that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's literally like watching a soap opera in real time. Like watching how, like, you literally sit on 2 different sides. It's like a high school cafeteria, right? You sit on 2 different sides. There's a lot of communicating back and forth. But, you know, there've been a couple of censure requests and things pushed by different members of Congress. And so watching that unfold in real time has been, I just keep thinking to myself, you know, Congress was closed down. In 4 months, they worked 19 days. So we should really be doing more to help the American people during this horrible economy, during this period of time where people weren't receiving SNAP benefits and the government was shut down. There's so much more that we should be working on. And, this is the kind of stuff that is taking up very precious time in Congress.
Is it taking up even more time? Do you sense maybe the divide is easing a little bit, or is there no sense of that at all?
It just depends on the issue, I think. And I think that that's help. Like, if there were more members of Congress, especially Republicans, that were willing to work across the aisle, I think that we would be able to do more to help the American people. Right now, there's such a huge division. And when you look at some of this devastating bills, and I'm thinking specifically of what they call the big beautiful bill and what is the really horrible devastating bill for most of Arizona and the nation. I feel like if we were to focus more on issues that are going to help working people, we'd be way ahead of the game.
Speaking of that, of course, the shutdown dealt with the premiums, the ACA premiums, and extending those subsidies and things. Part of the deal was their Republican leadership, the Speaker in your House, said that there will be a vote. First of all, do you trust that there will be a vote? And secondly, what good would that vote be if, as it stands, it wouldn't pass?
Well, the Senate leadership agreed to have a vote. The House leadership has not.
Interesting.
And has been very careful to avoid any real commitment on the issue. And so while, Democrats in the Senate believe their leadership, there was never any confirmation that that was going to happen in the House. And that won't I don't know that we're anywhere near that when we're talking about some of the negotiations that are coming around. So much of this is really just an attack of the foundation of ACA. A lot of Republicans never liked it, right? It barely passed, but they've had 15 years to come up with a better solution. And all we're seeing is sort of a dismantling of ACA.
I'm hearing, and we're hearing out here, that there are negotiations. There might be an agreement, maybe even a bipartisan agreement for maybe a 2-year extension on these subsidies. Is that what you're hearing as well?
That's what we're hearing as well. Right. And then they would put a cap on income, which I don't think we're opposed to. But really, it has to do with how much of the existing system are going to continue to help our most vulnerable communities. And if people can't afford to have health care, so that you don't get those preventative appointments, what ends up happening is that you have people running into urgent cares and emergency rooms in a crisis position, which actually just taxes an already stressed system in our medical system.
I know the Senate is kind of toying with the idea of health savings accounts. Instead of the subsidies, putting them into health savings accounts. What are your thoughts on something like that?
It doesn't actually really help. But I've had health savings accounts. I'm not opposed to that. If you're healthy, right, those are great. The problem is that you're going to have healthy people opting into a health savings account. Everyone else that needs more support is going to go into like the traditional system. It's just like any other healthcare system. If you have people that utilize it more, it becomes more and more expensive. A health savings account as a supplement to a quality healthcare system is great. But instead of, it's not going to benefit the vast majority of people who really need it.
So last question on this. Do you feel that there is some movement here? What did the shutdown accomplish?
Unfortunately, Republicans, again, have had 15 years to work on this system, to work on something that they can all support and also and work on it in a bipartisan way. One of the things I wish would have happened, and instead of a shutdown, that the House would have continued to work towards a bipartisan, continuing resolution that would include real substantive conversations about improving the healthcare system. I don't think Republicans, the vast majority anyway, really want to improve the ACA system. I think they just want to dismantle it bit by bit.
I can't let you go without asking about the Epstein file. They're out. You, of course, voted for you were a very big part of that, and not administering the oath as far as the Speaker was concerned, that was a big part of it as well. Okay, files are out, most of the files, but I guess a lot more to go here. What do you make of all this, and what do you tell your constituents about the files, what they say, what they mean, and how important this should be to them?
So really, so much of it is about, for me, it was about justice for the survivors and actually seeing legal consequences to people who were a part of a very systemic ring of, pedophilia and abuse of children and women. So for me, that was about justice. And then the other is transparency for this administration. So when Trump was running for office, if we remember, he said, day one, I'm going to release the files. And then his day one came and went, and we actually had to have a vote in order for this to happen. That didn't have to happen. Trump could have released these files whenever he wanted to. So the holdup in trying to change the minds of Republicans that signed on to that discharge petition, all of this was some sort of show. And what I'm really interested in is how much of the information we're going to get is really all of it, or if we're just going to get piecemeal information. And with this administration, Trump's administration, I can't count on the fact that we're going to get all the information that we deserve.
And Congressman, last question here. Again, back to your constituents and these Epstein files. This has placed so much, it's just added distrust, added cynicism going on. Are you sensing that from your constituents, or are they, there are other things going on here. The Epstein files are obviously very important because of the charges and the allegations and the whole 9 yards. It's there. But so are other things. What are your constituents telling you?
One, they were very happy to finally see me sworn in, regardless of whether you supported me in the election or not. It's like Arizona deserves to have representation, and we got a lot of attention in Southern Arizona. I didn't want to be known for the member of Congress that broke the record for not doing their job, but here we are. And so I think what it allows us to do is have a really solid platform on the issues that we were elected to fight for, and bring those to the forefront, because these are issues for Southern Arizona. So I'm excited for that platform. All
right, Representative Adalgisa Grijalva, good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining. Congratulations for, I don't have to call you Congresswoman-elect anymore. You are now Congresswoman Grijalva.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On Finding Your Roots, actors Pamela Adlon.
I don't want to disrespect my lineage, but I'm so curious.
And Kathryn Hahn.
What a freaking story!
Finding Your Roots.
Tuesday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
In this year's Lydia Celebrates America, I'm setting out to meet volunteers. Kiki, we're in your kitchen. Extending their hands.
We're all part of one neighborhood.
And sharing their tables. Helping America remain a nation of neighbors.
Tuesday night at 8 on Arizona PBS.
For over a year, I saw no one except my family. I'm a mother, it seems, and these are my children. And soon enough, they'll leave home, and I suppose my heart will be broken. But for now, this is my life as a turkey.
Wednesday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
American farmers have long struggled with high costs and low prices for what they grow and raise, but this year there is even greater uncertainty on farms and ranches due to tariffs and other on-again, off-again trade issues. Joining us now is ASU economist Dennis Hoffman. Dennis, good to see you again. Thanks.
Ted, great to be here.
Yeah, how much uncertainty right now is in the farm industry?
You know, it's tough out there. They're getting squeezed. I thought it was tough being a state employee, working for the government. It's tough being a farmer these days.
Tariffs? Trade?
It's two-sided. They're squeezed on cost, and the market for their products is challenged. So I'd be happy to chat about either one.
Well, because let's start with tariffs and what they mean in terms of exports, but also in terms of importing machinery, fertilizer, pesticide, all the things that's needed for farming.
Absolutely. Fertilizer, this begins, some farmers may think, well, what do we care about the Ukraine-Russian conflict? Well, a lot of fertilizer evidently is sourced from Ukraine and Russia. And so the cost of fertilizer skyrocketed in 2022, and it stayed up there. Natural gas is a cost driver for fertilizer. We get fertilizer ingredients from Canada. So it's as usual, much of this is globally sourced, and it's just out of favor right now, so it costs a lot more.
And farm equipment, I would imagine, not going down.
Absolutely.
Prices aren't going down there.
Absolutely not going down. And debt, to finance farm equipment is tough.
Soybeans. What's the deal with soybeans? Because it seems as though it's just gone nutty.
Soybeans are an interesting case study because people will tell me, as you know me in free trade, I'm one of those evil globalists, Soybean exports from Brazil to China and from the U.S. to China in 2016, they're about the same, like 35 million metric tons. We're giddy now because we got an agreement with China. Ted, they're going to buy 25 million for each of the next 4 years from us. They're going to buy 75 million from Brazil. So it's like two trajectories. We started this trade war fight when Mr. Trump took office in 2017, and our exports of soybeans have just been frozen or down pretty much ever since.
And that's killing the industry. I would imagine that's not helping the industry.
Oh, it's not helping the industry at all.
Cattle ranching, beef prices. Here in Argentina, all of a sudden become a huge player.
Yeah,
what's going on with that?
That's flipped. It's Mr. Trump's discovered, there's a benefit from trade. We can get some lower prices in an area where my constituents are not happy. And so beef has been a tough story. As beef prices perked up, and it perked up because of there's some shortages and demand continued, so the prices continued up. So farmers were caught. Do I raise these cattle, feed them, raise them, bear all the costs, and sell them a year or two from now at an uncertain price? Or do I sell them now at a fairly high price? And they sold them. And so the herds are down like 30 or 40%. And so the dynamics of the industry have changed dramatically. Now you got dairy farms coming in with their culled bull calves, and they're coming into the market. So that's what's happened recently, along with the fact that Mr. Trump has said, hey, we're going to take some beef from Argentina. So the investment markets on beef have really rolled over.
Interesting.
So we'll probably see some relief retail pretty soon, but not yet.
Let's talk about retail here. We got Thanksgiving coming up here. Or we may not have soybeans for Thanksgiving, and maybe even not beef, but a whole bunch of other stuff at the grocery store is going to be on the table. What's the price? What's the cost of all this for a Thanksgiving meal?
Well, it's all over the map. First of all, it's higher in the West than it is anywhere else for whatever reason. I read data from a reliable source about the 1st of November that said wholesale prices of turkeys are up 50 to 75%. And so I thought, well, that's going to translate into higher turkey prices this fall. It did not. It did not, because the retailers are using turkeys as a loss leader to get people into the stores. And when you get in the stores, you're going to pay 40%. You know that gelled cranberry in the can?
Yes.
I'm not a real fan.
Yeah.
But if you are, it's 40% more. Anything in a can is really up because of aluminum and steel tariffs. So anything that's in a can is far more expensive. So it's like they're going to cut the turkey prices down like 2%. Everything else is up significantly.
Get you in the door for a turkey, and then good luck with everything else.
So run to the store, get your bird, and then do everything else
Real quickly, before you go, because we're running out of time here. In terms of trade, in terms of tariffs, are things settling down?
I think so. The wild card really, though, is China. We really don't have a permanent deal with China, and that's where the bulk of the trade comes from. China has really flexed its muscle. You know, they've conceded on soybeans. We're going to buy soybeans. They've been buying 25 million for the last 5 years. It's no new news.
Yeah.
At least it's not zero like it has been most of this year.
Dennis Hoffman, ASU economist Dennis Hoffman. Well, happy Thanksgiving. Don't spend too much out there.
And get that deal on that turkey, Ted.
Okay.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, a judge throws out the cases against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. That's at 6 on Arizona PBS.
It's been 5 years since the legalization of adult-use marijuana in Arizona. Dispensaries have expanded as the industry's grown and matured, but with that expansion comes a new set of goals and challenges. Ann Torres is the executive director of the Arizona Dispensaries Association. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
5 years now. How has the industry grown, matured, evolved?
You know, in the last 5 years have been a skyrocket of change for the Arizona marketplace. One of the fastest rising adult use programs across the country. Part of that was coupled with COVID and some other outside factors, but Arizona was really ready for this program to be launched. It took a long time to get it over the finish line, and now that it's open, it really has made an impact for consumers.
Are the dispensaries ready for a more discerning consumer? Maybe a consumer who knows a little bit. Now, it's in 5 years, and you can't just, throw up a sign and say, here I am. You've got to do better than that, huh?
You do. It definitely is making our companies and our brands have to be a little more refined in what they're producing and what they're offering to consumers. What's really interesting is the growth of older consumers coming into the marketplace. So 55 plus is a growing segment for us, and so what those consumers are looking for is very different than somebody under the age of 30.
Is oversupply a challenge? Because I would imagine initially maybe it was hard to stock shelves, but not so much anymore?
Correct. Oversupply can be a problem in the marketplace, and really finding that delicate balance between what the consumers want and what we have available is a challenge for us.
What is that doing to prices?
Drives it down. So it's good for the consumer, and I think for us, it'll refine, again, the business practices for everyone out there.
Refining business practices. What about innovation? What about diversity of products?
Yeah, you have to be on the top of your game because consumers are looking for something new and different, and the competition is really intense.
Yeah. As far as regulation is concerned, has that changed over the years? Has that become, talk to me about that.
So the difference for us since adult use is we have more eyes on the industry. So we're regulated by the Arizona Department of Health, but also the Department of Agriculture, Department of Revenue, OSHA, of course. All of those different agencies are much more involved in the industry now since adult use.
Are they more, is it clear what the regulations are?
Yeah, I think it's very clear. It's a lot for our operators. They have a lot of regulatory structure around the businesses, and so they have to have really deep understanding of compliance.
With this availability, what's going on with medical marijuana?
Well, medical marijuana is still a strong program in Arizona. It has depleted some over the last 5 years. We have a lot of patients who just elected not to renew their medical cards for a variety of reasons. But there's still a lot of medical use. Most people who come in to use marijuana even as an adult user, are using it for a reason. They're coming in because they can't sleep or they have aches and pains, and maybe it doesn't qualify under the medical program, so they use it as an adult use purchase. But that use is still there.
And again, the diversity of products means you have all sorts of ways, don't you?
Correct. I think one of the most interesting categories that's been growing is topicals. People don't typically think of that as a pain relief or a way to utilize cannabis, but it's actually one of my favorite ways to take care of migraines and arthritis.
Migraines?
Mm-hmm.
What, you put it on your forehead?
I put it on my scalp and
jugular
veins. So yeah, it absorbs through the body and can provide relief.
Last question here. This is so interesting. Last question. Mainstream acceptance of marijuana. Is it there? Is it close? What are you seeing?
You know, it's better than it had been, but there's still a lot of curiosity about the plant and what it can do and how the industry is impacting the community at large. So there's still what we call the canna curious.
Yeah, oh, very good. And on the scalp up here, that
all over
works.
your head.
All right. Ann Torres, Arizona Dispensaries Association. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Hi, I'm Catherine Anaya, host of Horizonte. Have you signed up for the Arizona PBS Conexión e-newsletter? Visit azpbs.org/Conexión to subscribe to the monthly resource created to serve Arizona's vibrant Hispanic community. Conexión highlights Latino-focused Arizona PBS programming and features learning resources for kids, details on upcoming events, important headlines, and a brief column from yours truly.
Next time on Antiques Roadshow, celebrate women who made lasting treasures and history.
This is not just Chanel, this is Chanel Couture.
She's a very important figure in aviation history. She's a very important figure in women's history.
Don't miss our special, Antiques Roadshow Women's Work.
Tonight at 7 on Arizona PBS.
I'm Chef Mark Tarbell. Welcome to Check Please Arizona, the show where Arizona residents recommend their favorite restaurants. In this episode,